This kid played lights out, and give him a ton of credit. The poise that he showed, fourth down where they're pressing it, 4th and 4, it's all on the line. He doesn't shrink back.
All that experience in college translates to the pros. This dude, nothing seems to bother him. He's accurate, he's athletic, he's cool in the pocket, and all of that playing experience is playing out on the field right now.
And every team in the National Football League is trying to find the next Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
In just 8 games, Jayden Daniels has taken the NFL by storm, turning heads and making doubters wonder what they missed. Thrust into the spotlight as the Washington Commanders quarterback, he's transformed one of the league's weakest teams into a serious playoff threat. With each snap, Daniels makes it harder to believe that in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears chose Caleb Williams over him as the #1 pick. Yes, CJ Stroud set a high bar for rookie quarterbacks last season, but Daniels is clearing it, and then some. He's on track to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2024, while Williams is still searching for his stride. So why wasn't Jayden Daniels the first overall pick? So why did the Bears choose Williams over Daniels? To answer that, let's dive into each quarterback's journey, starting with Jayden Daniels. Daniels grew up in San Bernardino, California, and was a star at Cajon High School, breaking the California state record for total yards in a season as a junior with 6,431. In high school, it was already clear that Daniels was an exceptional athlete, developing into the true dual-threat quarterback that he is today. He put up 14,000 passing yards and 3,600 rushing yards during his time at the school, whilst also competing in track as a sprinter and hurdler. By the time he finished up at Cajon, it was clear to everyone that Daniels was one of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the nation, and as a result, he had his pick of where to go to college. After some deliberation, he chose Arizona State, where he showed flashes of his quality during his 3 seasons, throwing for 32 touchdowns during his 29 games as a Sun Devil, in addition to racking up 13 more on the ground. Daniels wasn't somebody to settle for just good though. So in 2022, he made the switch to Louisiana to play for the LSU Tigers, and his career went to the next level. Under head coach Brian Kelly, Daniels had a strong 2022 season, throwing for nearly 3,000 yards with a touchdown to interception ratio of 17-3, as the Tigers went 10-4, losing the SEC championship to eventual champions Georgia. It was a fantastic season, and the cherry on the cake was a crushing 63-7 victory over Purdue in the Citrus Bowl, laying the foundations for a legendary 2023 season 1 year later. In 2023, Jayden Daniels treated all of us to one of the all-time greatest seasons by a college quarterback. Over his 12 starts, he amassed 3,812 passing yards and 40 touchdowns, while throwing just 4 picks all year. This led to him setting the all-time record for passer rating in a single season with 208. And if that wasn't good enough, he also added 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground for good measure. As a result, he was given a full array of awards, winning the Davey O'Brien Award, the Manning Award, and of course, the Heisman Trophy as the very best football player in college. Daniels, alongside star wide receivers Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., was instrumental in LSU putting up the best offense in college football in 2023, averaging 45.5 points a game and dazzling in front of audiences all across the country, all season long. Every college football fan could see that Daniels was undoubtedly the best quarterback throughout that 2023 season. However, when he declared for the NFL Draft in April, most analysts seemed to be in agreement that he wouldn't be going first overall, and potentially not even second. Which brings us to Caleb Williams and his tape. As remarkable as Jayden Daniels' 2023 season was, Caleb Williams' 2022 campaign was every bit as good. Much like Daniels, Williams went through the transfer portal in 2022, choosing to follow his old head coach Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma to USC. And much like Daniels, his transfer was an overwhelming success, as he absolutely lit up the Pac-12 that season, creating a dazzling highlight reel along the way. In his first year as a Trojan, Williams put up a stunning stat line of 4,537 yards and 42 touchdowns with just 5 interceptions. That year, Williams led the Trojans to an 11-3 record while averaging 41.4 points a game. This included victories in rivalry matches over ranked opponents in UCLA and Notre Dame before falling to Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. As a result of his performances, Williams was also showered with awards, including the big one, the Heisman Trophy, becoming the 8th winner in school history more than any other program. It was here that Williams became the consensus #1 pick, a position that he never relinquished. Nobody ever came close to taking his crown as the consensus #1 pick, because he followed up his Heisman Trophy winning campaign with another strong season, putting up 3,333 yards and 30 touchdowns. He actually managed to record a better passer rating than he had in 2022 with 170.1. Obviously, he wasn't as good as Jayden Daniels that year, but he still kept performing well, showing that he was absolutely ready for the pro level. This takes us to the 2024 draft in Detroit, where both men declared as former Heisman winners. Both entered with exceptional tape, looking like absolute can't-miss prospects, having shown themselves to be capable of performing at their best in big moments for big-name schools. So why was Williams drafted ahead of Daniels? After all, by the midway point of their rookie seasons, it's Daniels who appears to be the lock for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, leading some to already speculate whether Bears GM Ryan Poles will regret his decision. So let's go through the reasons why the Bears, and most of the NFL world, considered Williams to be a better option at quarterback than Daniels. Let's start with each of their negatives. The concern with Williams was that he liked to escape the pocket and play out of structure a bit too much. However, this was largely over-exaggerated due to the fact that he was behind a bad offensive line and was constantly having to play catch-up. For Daniels, his slender frame was a considerable concern in the more physical pro game, especially considering his projected usage as a runner. On top of this, he sometimes took too long to leave his first read, didn't always play with anticipation, and was criticized for rarely throwing over the middle of the field. This is where it is worth pointing out that Daniels' performance at LSU was definitely helped by the quality of the wide receiver room that he had at his disposal. In that final season, Daniels was throwing to both Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr., both exceptional talents in their own right, and a vast upgrade over what Williams was dealing with at USC. It's fair to say that the offensive scheme and personnel around him may have actually slightly dented his draft profile. Daniels was able to have so much success throwing deep and outside the numbers because of Nabers and Thomas Jr.'s incredible ability in that area of the field that he simply rarely needed to pass over the middle. Now that we have seen him make nice throws over the middle of the field in Washington, it is a friendly reminder that just because we don't see something from a prospect in college doesn't mean he can't do it. On top of these criticisms of their play styles, Williams is a year younger than Daniels, which has led to some believing that he has more room to develop and therefore a higher ceiling. The age advantage that Williams has on his side can't hurt him here, especially when you consider that it took Daniels a year and 22 more college starts to reach the same level of performance. Williams undoubtedly does have a high ceiling, and it's been clear for a while that any team that drafted him was going to get an extremely talented quarterback, but also somewhat of a project that could be developed into something truly special. On the other hand, some had suggested that Daniels was already near his ceiling during that final year at LSU, and that Williams essentially had more upside going forward. There might also have been some skepticism about Daniels' ability to perform consistently, considering how much of an outlier his 2023 season was. Prior to that season, few were projecting Daniels as a top 5 pick. He'd clearly been a very good quarterback, but he obviously wasn't performing at a Heisman level up to that point. Obviously, the most important factor is personality and scheme fit. The NFL draft isn't always just as simple as drafting the best player available. Much of the challenge that every GM faces every April is visualizing how certain quarterbacks could adapt to their team's system and the league in general. For Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears, they obviously felt that Caleb Williams was the guy best equipped for pro football in their system, with comparisons being made to Patrick Mahomes, the way he scrambles, extends plays, and creates magic outside of the pocket. So far, however, the evidence suggests that the decision between the two quarterbacks that went in the first 2 picks should have been much closer than it was portrayed to be. Daniels looks cool, calm, and collected in the pocket, and already looks like a veteran. In his second start, he enjoyed a home divisional victory over the New York Giants, in which he played solid, mistake-free football, helping the team to the first win of the Dan Quinn era. Then, 1 week later, he treated fans to his true breakout game. On Monday Night Football in Cincinnati, Daniels put on a clinic, completing 21 of 23 passes for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns in a thrilling back-and-forth quarterback battle with fellow LSU alumnus Joe Burrow. Burrow was also brilliant that night, but he was outplayed by a man making just his 3rd NFL start and loving every minute of it. If anyone had any doubts about his ability to perform at the pro level, well, those doubts had already been extinguished after just 180 minutes of football. As we've said, getting a quarterback right in the draft comes down to giving him the right situation, and the early returns out of Washington have been incredibly promising. Jayden Daniels' companion at offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, allowed Daniels to shine by prioritizing short passes, helping him to get the ball off quickly and constantly move the chains. These built a confidence in Daniels, whilst also keeping the offense rolling and the scoreboard ticking over. That's exactly what you want to see for your rookie quarterback. As a result, Daniels' first steps in the NFL were much smoother than Williams, and the Commanders, after years of dysfunction, look like a well-drilled, well-oiled machine on offense. On the contrary, Williams' start to life in Chicago has been much messier, with his first 2 games seeing sub-60 passer ratings as he failed to throw a touchdown in either of them. The Bears appeared to be leaning into the perceived strengths of Williams, hoping for him to make big, flashy plays with that arm talent before he's truly been developed at the pro level. On the whole, it's clear to see that Daniels is far more than just a guy who's carried by Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. While those guys definitely played a part in his college success, Daniels continued playing at an incredibly high level with the Commanders' receiving core that is far less talented. The best receiver on the team, Terry McLaurin, has been a rare bright spot on some really poor Washington teams, having become the only player in franchise history to have 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. McLaurin is a very good receiver, but beyond him, Daniels doesn't have many explosive playmakers to rely on, but he's made it look easy and converted Washington into a legitimate contender. Entering Week 9 in the 2024 NFL season, they sit at the top of the NFC East with a 6-2 record, trending in the right direction for the first time in decades. The debate between whether Caleb Williams or Jayden Daniels should have gone first overall will go on forever, constantly tied to one another by the fact that they were back-to-back picks for teams who are in desperate need of a savior. Both are significant, historic franchises that have suffered for decades now, almost entirely due to poor quarterback play. We will have to wait and see whether the 2024 NFL Draft was the turning point that both fan bases are desperate for, as they crave that ring that neither team has had in over 30 years. There's obviously a long way to go in both guys' careers, but it's hard not to wonder if the Bears are regretting their decision already. So, what do you think? Which guy is destined to have the best NFL career and potentially end up with a ring? Let us know in the comments.